Hi, Greg Weldon here with the Global Macro Strategy Report for Monday, November 3rd. November. Thanksgiving's only a couple of weeks away. The ultimate conundrum. Don't try and read all this. I'm going to give you, you can read this on your own. But talking about the central bank facing a moment here in time and space that will come to define the future, like we've seen in trade, like we see in politics here in the US, like we see in so many things, the Fed is now as polarized as they've ever been. And this is right in line with our themes that go all the way back to 2018 to 2012, really, frankly, back to 1983 when I was studying the Mayan calendar, and in terms of how this applies to the solar system's orbit through the Milky Way. And there's a variety of orbits. You go around the Sagittarius B, the black hole. It's the center of the Milky Way, 230 million year orbit in the spiral arms. But within the spiral arms, we also traverse with other solar systems a whole nother subsector in Orion's spur, in between two of the big spiral galactic arms. So in that context, where we are now is a really interesting place. You can see it on the map here, because basically you have so much on this side, so much on this side, kind of to the degree to which it's equally either dense or not dense there on either side of us. What we have is all these things that are pulling us, have gravitational pulls from either side, from all directions. You got a star system, you got a pulsar, you got a quasar, you even have a supernova 400 light years away, all close to us, all producing light plasma that's hitting the Earth. And in the context of that, what you have is a period that is highly electrified with polarization and more vibrations resonance at each end of the spectrum as this plasma hits the Earth. This is energy bombarding the ionosphere, heating the planet. You have the core of the planet now vibrating at like 100 times the 5-year average over the last 2,000 years. And you also have the crust of the planet resonating at a higher rate. Now, here's what it gets interesting. Geological, technology has allowed us to measure the resonance, the vibration, the frequency of the planet's movements, the crust of the planet, 7.83 hertz for the last 2,000 plus years. Well, 7.83 hertz is also the resonance of the human heartbeat. There's been this connectivity, this harmony, this in syncness around human beings and the planet. And that is now gone because the planet resonance is spiking, it's rising generally and also spiking to as high as 8.29 hertz. And you wonder why people and animals, all right, how many animals are acting out as well as people, acting violent, crazy, psychotic, polarized, divided. All of this is due to the science that is here for the next couple of 100 years. And when you look at this dynamic around being in what they call the photon belt, there's my cursor, there we go. And here's just some cool little, kind of symbols and, learning little slides here to understand what the photon belt is and how it's linked to the Mayan calendar and how it's linked to the, 11,000 years after you're through the photon belt. And this is kind of like the recycling of life, all right, the extinction level events. When you talk about the Mayan calendar in 2012, it wasn't the end of the world. It was the beginning of the next phase. The precession of the equinoxes is tied into this. Everything's tied into this. And where you talk about the Mayan calendar, where it's like, you have this restart, this reboot, and it is nature, it is science, because the planet ultimately will be not inhabitable for human beings with all of this, increased resonance. You have record storms, you have record heat and record cold. It's not one or the other, it's both. And both ends of the spectrum are more of a record. So this is all against science, all right? And as applies to the Fed, it's the polarization among the Fed members at a time when the polarization in the macroeconomic dynamic is as wide as ever, stagflation, okay? And the risk, of course, you say it's balanced, and now they're not balanced, all right? But the risk is so important here, given the debt in the U.S. as the largest debtor nation, all right? Trade is kind of coming unglued to the degree that the dollar, going to give way to some kind of form of another currency or even metals or whatever it might be, BRICS unit, as it digital. I mean, however this plays out, again, it's so polarized and it's such a critical point, a critical moment in time and space that will define the future. And what the Fed does here will be a big part of it. How they deal with the polarized risk, the polarized energy of all these things that are happening, and the polarization of their own opinions All right, the realities will rise. And the fact of the matter is, inflation will rise no matter what they do. They think they can control it, they can't control it. And inflation will become deflationary, and there's your stagflation. There's your lower standard of living. And there's the only way to do it, like I said in my 2006 book called Trading Boot Camp. Any central banker worth his weight in gold, okay, if we'll put it that way, staring into the deflation, the debt deflation event abyss, will choose to reflate at any cost. This was before QE, and I predicted QE and was kind of considered a nut job on Joe Carter on national television for suggesting that, oh my God, monetary heresy, the Fed would monetize government debt, which of course, in fact, is public debt. Throw in household debt, you got 55 trillion of it. What are you going to do next? More of the same. Dollar down, everything up, but you don't keep pace with stocks. And they're in the volatility of gold and a lot of other things going on here, okay? The bottom line is, intensified stagflation will impact the standard of living. The Fed will respond to that by acquiescing to higher rates of inflation, generally speaking. That was one of my key themes for this year, and it's playing out right here, right now. And you could say, by some measures, according to some Fed comments, that the Fed has already acquiesced to higher inflation by those that think that they shouldn't have cut this month. Let's take a look at the division, or in October.